Anyway, while this is getting set up, I guess before I get into it, this is I'll call it a light talk. It's supposed to be a feel good talk and generate some discussion. To kick it off, though, despite how old you may think I am, I lived through a lot of different things. Internet didn't exist when I was born. It's now part of our everyday life. Rotary phones were still around. I'm trying to see if everyone knows what that is. We have a good demographic here. Now we have cell phones, T9 texting. Now we have voice to text and autocorrect. Things change pretty quickly. Um, Today, I get to talk to you about fish counters and the evolution of that technology on Lake Ontario in essentially the past 10 years. This is a project that I've been working on for a while. My co authors, Tom Gristy and Quinn Fisher, they've been doing the more mathematical side of things that you'll see in a bit. But again, I'm hoping that we end on some great opportunities and people are thinking about what this technology can do for them. So without further ado, from pixels to populations, fish counters, and horizon machines. Hopefully everyone picked up on that red dot. If no one gets that reference, this is going to be a rough go for me as we go through. Okay. Um, Off the hop, as mentioned, this has been a long-standing body of work. There's a huge group of people from the Lake Ontario Management Unit that have contributed to this. I want to acknowledge them up front. Also, recent partnerships with Dr. Kirkov, and Simone Collier out of the University of Toronto. We'll highlight some of the work there near the end. So again, common session orientation for everyone. Lake Ontario. For me, we're mostly focusing on the Ganaraska River and the Credit River. These are the two locations we use as sentinel rivers, the Credit River primarily being stocked salmon and trout returning to this river that we're evaluating. And on the Ganaraska River, it's naturalized populations. Okay? What these two rivers have in common, they have barriers with associated fishways. This one is the one on the Ganaraska River. It's about 3 kilometers upstream. Anytime now, once the water warms up a bit, this is what we'll be seeing as rainbow are trying to make their way through the fishway up to spawning habitat. That's the aperture there that they're jumping through. This one's at kilometer 3. On the Credit River, it's at kilometer 15. These are important rivers. We do our evaluations there. It's a pinch point for migratory salmon and trout to get through. So it makes sense that we want to count these fish and get an understanding of their abundance as they're moving through. Now, I kind of skipped a stage here because at one point in time, much like doorman or bar staff as they're doing their clicks for attendance, we had hand counters and we're visually watching these fish move through the fishway and just ticking away. So I skipped that stage and went to this resistivity counter. This was fixed in the fishway. The salmon, or trout in this case, had to move through. If you can see within those tunnels, there are copper bands. If you can't see it, just believe me. As the fish swim through, it will count the fish going upstream depending on the succession of those bands, or downstream if the fish is going the other way. And you get a cashier's receipt, essentially, that tells you how many fish went up every hour. Our amazing volunteer group maintained this for many years, over 30 years, keeping track of these daily counts. And ultimately, that gave us this amazing data series for natural spawning stock coming through to the Ganaraska River. It was an index for rainbow trout. What we found was when we saw more rainbow trout coming through, successive years for anglers was great. They were having good fishing success. So long time series here with that. Now, in addition to these fishways, specifically on the Ganaraska, we have a basket. You can see one of our volunteers in the top right corner of the screen. They're lifting up the basket. We can then sample those fish. So we have crews on site there taking some measurements, biological measurements. We get age and growth information from them. Excuse me. And we can also identify the species when we do these fish lifts. In the springtime, as you'll see, it's primarily rainbow trout, and that's what this program is based on for right now. Okay, so I'm fast forwarding to more recent times here. So Lake Ontario has a restoration initiative for Atlantic salmon. Around 2015, the program shifted to a focus of trying to detect and understand adult returns. A lot of effort went in to getting fish into the lake. There was a lot of habitat work. What we weren't seeing were these adults returning. And so we were using these pinch points at these fishways, at these two rivers, which were priority restoration rivers, to understand returns. For these fish to successfully spawn, they need to get through those fishways to that spawning habitat. So we needed to improve the fish counting technology that was there. That resistivity counter does not tell us what those fish are, and the basket lifts really rely on us to find those few Atlantic salmons that are returning. So it's a bit challenging. So this is where we move to this technology. So the next iteration. So this was 2016 for the Ganaraska River. Oh, thank you for the text. That's nice. On the Ganaraska River, this is the River Watcher counting system. There are two different parts to it. The first part is an infrared scanner. Some of you may have already seen this, but the first part is an infrared scanner. It works in tandem with the second part, which is a camera. So as the fish moves through, it breaks these infrared laser beams, and as it moves up, depending on the direction that it's going, it'll break the one beam first, the other one second. If it's going downstream, it'll hit it the other way in succession, and so it tells the system which direction it's going. While it's going through, that scans the fish and gives us a silhouette, which you can see on the side. It also gives us information on the clips. And just for the record, those are the right species for those silhouettes. If you've seen, what you'll find out is the many hundreds of thousands that I have seen, it becomes abundantly clear, but at times it can be challenging. For Atlantics, we were clipping their out-of-post fin, so we can use this to help confirm what species they are. Now again, as you heard me say, there's also a camera. So we don't need to rely on that necessarily because we have the camera. So when the beams are broken, it activates the camera, and now you can confirm, in this case, the Chinook is moving through. Okay, so moving forward, did it work? Yeah, absolutely. We had Atlantic salmon moving through. These are some snips here. You can see there are other species in there, but Atlantic salmon were moving through. For the program, we'll say over 13 years of monitoring, but combined, I guess. So 2017, 18 on the credit, and 2017, we'll say, on the Ganaraska, we had under 300 adult Atlantic salmon moving through those fishways. So it wasn't necessarily the target that we wanted to see, but it was a lot of great information gained around some of the challenges that program is facing, and it allowed us to pivot. We're seeing some successes now. I won't steal Mike Connerton's thunder for tomorrow's talk, so stay tuned for Mike Connerton's talk tomorrow on Lake Ontario fisheries, and he'll highlight a portion of that. Now, if you did notice, there were other fish species other than Atlantic salmon in those videos. So we learned a lot of information about the species dynamic and run dynamic through those fishways in those two rivers. So in these, again, for people that aren't familiar with salmon and trout, I labeled these, but to be clear, I'll have to laser. We have a coho salmon. If you look at the back, when it moves through, you'll see that there's an AD clip there. There's a Chinook salmon here. It's missing its out-of-post fin. Another Chinook salmon, it has its out-of-post fin. There's another guy that's poking his nose in here. Atlantic salmon, Chinook, rainbow, and then there's a brown that's posing in front of the camera, and then the coho doesn't like that and chases them out. So lots of cool things happening. Oh, and that coho was clipped as well. So lots of cool things happening. Again, for anyone interested, you can scan those QR codes, and it takes you to an online website that gives you hourly updates. These systems are not in place right now this year. Well, they might be as of today, but they're not necessarily in place right now, but they will be online shortly. So every hour you can get updates of what's happening. So as I mentioned, we gathered a lot of information through the years. This is the 2025 run on the Ganaraska, and you can see some dynamics here. We've got the spring run of rainbow, and then it's kind of slow through the summer. What I did notice is brown trout is missing on this. We had about 400 brown trout move through. They kind of occur here and a bit into the fall. They're missing, so I apologize for that. But in the fall, we also have some coho and Chinook and a large portion of Chinook. So on the Ganaraska River, we had just over 30,000 fish move through last year. Now, as you can imagine, it's a pretty wicked data set. I don't know if anyone cares about screen time. With my two kids, it's something we talk about a lot. It is a lot of video to review. So we're going through looking for those Atlantic salmon. As I mentioned, there was about 300. I just said in 1 year we had 30,000 fish go through. So we're really looking for those few fish that are moving through. Sometimes there are multiple fish If they swim through those beams at the same time, the computer doesn't realize there's two. It just says those beams are broken. It still counts one fish, so we have to validate that. There's upstream and downstream. Debris goes through, beavers go through, other animals go through. And so there's non-fish targets as well. So there's a lot of video review associated with this. Combined, again, these numbers are to impress everyone, 710,000 records that we go through. It's on average 15 seconds of video. So we've got about 3,000 hours of video, for sake of argument, that we've been able to watch. Again, conceptually, may be challenging for some. I was trying to hit the right demographic here. That is 263 times getting through the trilogy of Lord of the Rings. My favorite is the first three. I did not count the others. These ones I felt are the most important. But the first three, Jurassic Park, around 517 times. And then again, one that I think will hit most of us here, 8,000 episodes of The Simpsons, or 25,000 episodes of Bluey, for anyone that knows what that is. It's a lot of time. So again, and this was planned, I tried to coordinate with my AI twin here, but we're trying to think about how we can become more efficient and effective. And we heard a lot about machine learning. I'm not going to go into a lot of the details on this. The idea, though, was to find an approach that would reduce our video review time and highlight some of these challenges where we can then manually identify these fish species, or maybe we can make the system and the models as accurate as can be, and it removes this side of thing, that review piece. So for me, this is incorporating the expertise of others. We went to the computer science realm and partnered with our aquatic research and monitoring section in U of T to develop some of these tools. Now, one of my fears last night as I got into some of these side conversations was people asking a lot of really technical questions about machine learning. I am not the expert, as I'm sure that individual found out, but it was a great chat nonetheless. There was mention of YOLO models. If I'm not seeing many heads nod, I know some will. That's essentially what we started with as a building block. It's used much like it is here on traffic cameras. So this I took off the web so you can see those things. But the idea is the machine doesn't know it's a car. We're telling it that's what we're interested in. And so what we're doing conceptually is we're giving it some information. Those are those videos. We're identifying sort of manually where those cars are and what a car is. It's starting to make its own classification tree, and then it starts watching videos. And it's like, man, I think that's a car. And then we tell it whether it's right or wrong. If it's right, it gets its treat, digital treat, and solidifies that pathway. And if it's wrong, it then kind of changes how it thinks about it. And then we can also provide it more training data to refine it. So again, that was a car GIF or GIF, depending on your perspective. And I'm saying it doesn't know it's a car. What if we say, hey, here's a fish, and what's going to happen here? So we're building off those models that already existed. It's creating its own neural network to kind of come up with this decision framework, and then it's going to give us a probability of what it thinks it is. So in this case, I don't know if Tom made up these numbers or not, but in this case, you know, it's 80% confident that's a Chinook, 10% confident it's coho, 7% confident Atlantic, and 3% rainbow. It's working on a frame-by-frame basis, so these 15-second videos, if I remember my numbers correctly, are about 150 frames. Okay, so each of those 150 frames is coming up with a distribution here. Okay, so there were no shock and awe moments on that. I was pretty excited about this video. So this this was really before we did anything. This was just taking the raw model and throwing some information or some of the videos in here to see what would happen. And it picks up the Chinook moving through. For anyone that's paying attention, you can see the box changes different shapes here, and it also picks up on one of our desiccant packs, which is interesting. But this is really us not doing anything yet. As we added much more information, it started to isolate the specific fish and separate it from the background. Okay? So, promising on its first attempt. If you can recall that graph that was animated and showed the runs, there was more rainbow and more Chinook. So we had a lot of information there. That's where we started. So this was just a Chinook and rainbow model. We were once we started building that training set, we gave it some videos to review, and the hope was that it's going to be able to find that fish specifically and be able to identify it. It definitely picked up on the Chinook. Hopefully you guys can see it. If you can't, there's numbers at the top here that's giving it a 90 to, we'll generously say 85 to 90% confidence that that's a Chinook. On the other side, we have a rainbow that's moving through, and the colors changing means that it's actually bouncing between a rainbow and a Chinook. And while that may be disturbing, when you think about the actual number of frames that are here, it was completely correct. It said it was a rainbow trout, and very few times did it actually come up with a Chinook. So again, initial cut for 2 species, great. My expectation was hopefully this is gonna filter out empty videos and maybe identify Chinook and remove them from our review, but it's already able to start isolating these 2 species relatively well. As time progresses, we include more data. The video is not playing, but just imagine this video is playing and there's an Atlantic salmon moving through. You're doing a great job. Hopefully it works. Okay, so imagine an Atlantic salmon is moving through and it has a perfect box around the Atlantic salmon and it has a confidence of 1. It is 100% confident that's an Atlantic salmon that's moving through there. It's unfortunate it didn't work. My computer crashed last night when I tried to review, so I thought this might happen, but that's okay. Hopefully it's perfect. This one worked. So this is another iteration. We have more data added now. You can see there's debris. This is a little bit more real life situation. It has that coho, nailed it. It's tracking it. It identified it. There's a Chinook. If you blink, you might have seen that other Chinook move through. Another Chinook moves through in behind really quickly. It still was able to pick it out. It identified there were 3 fish there. It identified them correctly. And, you know, we can move on. Disappointed the Atlantic video didn't work, but take my word for it, it was pretty cool. So, oh, this is a slow motion one. Okay, right, I forgot this was in here. So this one's pretty cool. We've got a brown trout moving through. As you can tell, we're struggling a bit here. And what's cool about this is, again, this is a fixed camera where fish are moving through, much like that Chinook is, as it should be. But that brown trout got a little bit confused and didn't know what it was doing. And so it was just changing its orientation. The algorithm or the neural network doesn't have those perspectives of that fish. And so it's trying to figure out what the heck is that thing that's flipping around in different directions. And so it's having a hard time because it doesn't have those data in the training set. It nails it when it's broadside, but when it's changing its orientation, it's struggling a bit. So these are things that we're picking up on and we're helping it learn and picking these videos out to help train. So overall, and again, hats off to Tom, and sorry, Haley, for the late submission. Tom ran this a couple days ago just to get an idea of how well this model is working. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of information on Chinook. We have a lot of information on Rainbow. I'm going to highlight Chinook here. The 2025 credit run went through the model. The overlap here is the red is the technician that manually reviewed everything. The blue is the model. It was picking up the ebbs and flows and identifying the species correctly, and we almost had a perfect match to what was happening from the technician manual review. Now we move on to browns. It's a little bit different story. The scale here is important. We've got over 1,000 videos, 1,000 fish a day in some of these, and it's knocking it out of the park. Again, here, the technicians are topping out at 13 browns. 13 browns was a big day here. The model, when it's heavier with other fish, is getting a little bit confused around brown trout. That is one of our data sparse training components of the model, so it's struggling with that. But what we are able to do is set the confidence threshold. And so we decided we want the model to be 80% confident in the species identification. If it's not, kick it out and we're going to look at it. So what we found is, overall, it's about 200 hours of resource time to review those videos. When Tom started running this, it took 20 hours for the computer to go through this. These are the total counts from the technician and then sort of the net difference. It's in the number here from the blue of the model. So we had about 14,000 Chinook. The model counted 600 less. There are some other discrepancies down here, but for the most part, it's doing quite well. And the way I looked at this was, in 20 hours, we're getting some pretty good estimates. And we can take these 18,000 videos from 2025 and really reduce it down to 700. So combined some of the discrepancies here as well as the ones that were under 80% confidence, and review those. So a lot of saving time. So I'm already at red. All right, so moving back here, we have 18,000 records. That's about 75 hours. I was going back to that 710, 15 seconds. So now we're at 18,000 for 2025 at 15 seconds. That's 75 hours. We're going to remove the no fish and the non-targets. That puts us to 15,700. So 11 times we're watching those. And then now if we just say, okay, it's doing really well with Chinook and Rainbow, so let's remove those from the process here. We're now down to 1,600 videos, of which most of those are going to be Coho, Browns, and Atlantics. So we've essentially taken all of that work, whittled it down to 6.5 hours of review time of these videos, which is unfortunately only one run through of Jurassic Park. But we have a 90% or more than 90% reduction in our review time. So that frees up a lot of time for our staff to move on to other priorities that, quite frankly, we just haven't had time to get to. So we're using this and leveraging this to really focus on those problematic areas. And, getting too excited. I'm in the red, so cut me off if I need to. But what's really neat is Tom and Quinn had the foresight to design this program. So we're going to have this run through, and when the technicians manually review as we go through into the next year, it's going to continue to train the model. And so this is going to get better and better each year as we go through. I will be quick, but this is exciting. Some research opportunities I wanted to highlight. This is when much more information is put into this. So this is a segmentation model. It's not going to run, I guess. But the video shows a coho moving through. So imagine a beautiful coho. I think it's a male coho moving through. It has a perfect pink outline. No, it's not going to go. The irony of technology not working at technology seminar. Cool. A male coho swims through. It's perfectly identified. It's instead of a box, now you have an outline of the fish, exactly outlined. And what Simone was doing as part of her master's, she graciously figured out what the model was actually putting its attention to when it's identifying species. And so this is where the attention went to. When the model is looking, quote unquote, at a fish, this is where it's spending its time. So for us, we spend a lot of time in the mouth area, in the jaw, the anal fin, the caudal fin. It's looking at different things. As maybe you guys picked up on, and I'm sure you all did because you were listening so attentively, I did mention the coho with the clips. So it has that adipose fin as one of the things it's really looking at for coho. In the model or in the data set that we sent it, those coho did have clips, so it was the only fish that would have been clipped. There are other species that are clipped, so as time progresses, this value will likely diminish. When you look at each of these features, the key thing is it's not one thing that's driving the identification. It's the combination of everything all at once. And so there are some mathematical components here that are just beyond my comprehension. So it may be that it's looking at the ratio of this dorsal fin to pectoral fin to caudal fin, and whatever that length value is unique to coho. And so the pieces that are here, it's all looking at simultaneously for all 150 frames to come up with that species identification. I printed this and it's on my wall. I'm just going to leave it here so everyone can think about it for a second. It's hard to wrap your head around. So again, this was cool. It came out pretty early on. Simone, not a fish head, as she was looking at this, it picked up on a mark on its side, and she's like, "Hey, do you guys think this is important? Like, what is that?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely. Can we please keep track of that?" And so one of the things that's coming out of this is passive sampling of all of these species that are going through, all these migratory species going through, and we're going to be able to get some lamprey mark information. On the Kanarask and the Credit River, the camera's on different sides. I don't know, Ted, we can talk about whether that matters or not, but we'll get two sides, not the same fish, but we'll call it subsampling. And there might be some information here to pull. There's other pieces that we're talking about to get two sides of the fish. That's a whole other thing. I'm already out of time. But in the end, I did want to kind of bring it full circle to the Technoscience seminar. So first off, we're working towards faster, more consistent tracking of these runs. We're optimizing the resources. This is going to be operational this year. And so that validation data set, or that validation is going to happen this year. We're going to increase that training data set to improve this model, and it's going to be a continual process here. The credit and Ganaraska data set have turned out to be invaluable in advancing some of this technology. We have lots of new opportunities. I would say I shaved the top of the iceberg on the things I wanted to talk about today, and I'm already 5 minutes over. We're refining the models. It's really exciting. And again, back to the Technoscience seminar, through that process, we connected with, if anyone watched the Salmon Vision seminar, which I'm sure you all did, we connected with Dr. Willa Atlas, and we're now talking about combining our data sets with the West Coast and working with people on the East Coast through that connection. So lots of value to that Technoscience seminar. So thank you. I don't know where you are, but thank you, Julie, for that. And it's really leading to national collaboration on this front. Okay, questions?